hold on a second.
Got it? Is it going? Okay. Okay, I'm going to sit off to the side. I'll let you guys know if you happen to go over. We'll try to keep it to about 15, but it's obviously, no one's going to get hurt if
it
go
goes
over.
a little older.
You guys
over.
have fun.
All right.
So Deborah, I was going to suggest when you get the copy of this, that if you send me like the raw footage of it, what we can do is cut and copy and put it on Facebook, or I'm sorry, on YouTube, because like a newsletter is great, but people want video, like we can clip pieces of it to put on social media.
I will definitely get you the raw footage. I will also, we always post these to our YouTube page as well. So
you do? Okay.
It's not just that. Actually, we're doing it as a way to build our newsletter. So we're kind of saying it's only available. It goes public. So you're welcome to send the link, but I will send you the raw footage if you'd like.
Okay. Well, because if you send me raw footage, then I can actually load it directly to my YouTube channel, and you'll get better coverage through that.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll have to figure out how to do that where it won't be such a big file, but
so when I've done it before I did it with another friend of mine where we did like a this kind of thing, and you just send it to me through Google Drive, so you can you just upload it to it, and then I can download it, pull it off, and then you can delete it and free up your Google Drive.
Yeah, like I said, it's not like we're keeping it so private. It goes immediately up on YouTube, but we're trying to build our newsletter base too. So we were trying to get people to kind of to see if
is that working though, or is it just? Is it okay? Yeah. It just seems like when I saw that, I was wondering if that would create like one more obstacle for people to not necessarily.
Absolutely. We just offer it. We don't like to bug people. So if they want to see it, we're welcome to give it to them. But we also end up posting that it is available. So it's kind of a thing we try. So it does become available. You want to create a little scarcity, but you'll have the link plus the raw footage. So you guys
sounds perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Sweet. So are we ready? Do you have any questions or thoughts before we get started?
No, I pulled out a couple of things. Okay, so we've got 15 minutes. I'm just trying to make sure that we talk about relevant things inside of that. So we've got we've got 5 case points essentially. So about 5 minutes each. What time is it right now? Okay. All right. I'm just organizing it in here. We'll try to make it reasonable. Okay.
And it's okay if you end up riffing a little bit. It's fine. This isn't, So.
Oh yeah, no, totally. It's really easy though. Like literally the reason that I know is because when Dawn and I talked, I'm like editing 3 hours of freaking video, because the next thing you know, it's like 45 minutes that we're talking about other things that, some people will do YouTube channels where like they're just rambling, and I'm like, I do not know how anybody has time to watch that. So I would never expect anybody to do that for me. So I love
you.
So it's less, I'm just trying to save you work on the back end for editing reasons, to be concise. So you don't have to be like, oh, I got to go through that whole 15 minutes again or whatever.
We try and stay right to the point.
Got it. Okay, I'm ready.
Yep.
So give it a second or two and then do it.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. We here at FreedomWand have been focusing our summer social media on our newsletter and physical and mental health benefits that come with dignified wiping and toileting and how it improves patient outcomes. And we have with us today Carol Chiang. She is an OT from Aging in Place expert who has created her own company called Evolving Homes. And Carol is passionate about helping people age in place with beauty, confidence, and reduce stress by planning ahead to age in place, which is really key. And her key is to make home spaces easy and safe to live in order to help loved ones live an active, independent, carefree life in the home that they love and want to stay in. So we will post all of Carol's links for you all in our newsletter. And welcome, Carol. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
Hi, how are you doing?
We're good. We're good. You're in Florida, so you've got some nice, beautiful weather going on, I'm sure.
Well, if you call beautiful getting into the oven, then sure. It's, in February, it'll be nice.
Yeah, February is nice. Yeah, I'm actually coming to Florida this coming weekend. I got to fly. Where am I going to? I don't even remember right now where I'm going to, but I got to go for a training for a
Ah,
few days. So I'm
yeah,
looking forward to just getting away, if nothing
yeah.
else.
Well, early mornings are nice.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us something a little bit more that might not be in your bio, or some fun story that nobody might not know?
Well, I talked a little bit about this on social media this past week, that, I always talk about how I'm an occupational therapist by training. And, I have this home modification business, Aging in Place, which is sometimes a little bit boring. So I thought what was kind of interesting about me is that I'm an animal whisperer. I really enjoy, I have 3 bunnies, and most people, bunnies are the number 3 pet in I don't know, in the world, maybe. So it goes dogs, cats, bunnies. But generally people cannot pick up bunnies because they kick, because they're a prey animal. They're not built to be companions the way that dogs and cats are. However, these days people have a lot of house rabbits, and house rabbits are ones that live in the house and they run around, and you'll see them on Instagram and people snuggling up on these little things, but they still need to feel like they can be hugged and taken care of. So what I'm really good at is, one, getting these animals to a point where they can trust me, and then they'll let me hold them, and then teach like somebody else in order to do that. And so I was in Vancouver last week, and my sister's next door neighbor had a bunny that they felt like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to feed it and it doesn't like me. And I taught the 13-year-old how to hold her bunny now, and she can hold him like a baby.
Aw, that's pretty cool. I've got a funny story about a bunny. We had bunnies when my children were very small, and my youngest was just walking. And that bunny was supposed to have been come to us house trained. Well, he was not house trained, and he decided to like the bed. But what really put me over the edge, and we just needed to remove the bunny from the home, is when I changed my son's diaper and it was full of rabbit droppings.
Oh, he was eating them. Oh, how
Yes.
funny. Oh, that's too funny.
And
Yeah.
after that, I needed to remove the bunny from the home, because I'm like, oh no, I can deal with droppings on the floor and picking them up, but not when my son's going to eat them.
Yeah. Well, and luckily they're, quite dry because they eat mostly hay. So it's definitely not the same as human waste, which can be a little bit more complex and difficult for caregivers, right? To manage having to wipe, and is it clean? Is it wiped enough? Can somebody, catch all those little parts?
Uh-huh. Yep. Right. Well, that's pretty interesting. That's cool to know. So, getting to our questions, what tips and advice do you have for clients that desire to age in place as it relates to caring for their own personal hygiene?
You know, um, Incontinence is the number 1 reason why people can't age in place. It's either that it's caregiver burden, that they can't manage all the washing, the infections or other things like that lead people to end up having to consider putting somebody in assisted living. So to me, toileting is huge. It's a huge part of being able to age in place well, because it's your own self-esteem, it's caregiver burden, but it's also a fall risk. And let me tell you why. That is a UTI problem. So if somebody can't clean themselves well, or they are cleaning themselves from, back to front, they're introducing bacteria into areas that then cause infection, which urinary tract infections often cause things like altered mental status, which might lead to hallucinations. You get generalized weakness, where people are just suddenly their legs give out on them. So for so many reasons, I think that dealing or looking at those private areas are an important part of being able to age in place. It's not just grab bars. It's really looking at how you're functioning, and is that something that's going to keep you out of the hospital?
Yeah, I just experienced that with my dad, who had dementia, and it was the bathroom that finally was the end for us, because he didn't realize where he would go, and he just wanted to sit in the middle of the room. Or so when it took 3 of us to get him up off the floor, that was the end. He needed. Then I knew I couldn't do it anymore. So it was all about the bathroom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
the toileting issues.
It's-
Thank you so much. What tips and advice for toileting personal hygiene can you give caregivers to help their client loved one age in place? Like, do you have tips and tricks for them?
Um, always, because like I've said, that's a huge part of being able to age in place. I'm a Parkinson's specialist, and one of the hallmarks of Parkinson's is slowness. And you don't just get slowness in the arms and legs, you get slowness in the gut, digestion, and also evacuation. And so one of the problems that I do see quite a bit is constipation. And with constipation, what can happen is that everything moves so slowly, it builds up, and you might get like a sudden evacuation of everything coming out, or leakage and things like that, which really what happens, it requires frequent cleaning. So one of the things that I tell people to do is, first off, they need to get a bidet, because an attachment bidet is very inexpensive. That way you can just kind of clean everything up. And then also using a shower hose, if they have to get in the shower, they can really get down in there, and installing grab bars a little lower. I've used the FreedomWand a lot with drying, because one of the things that I find difficult, that people find difficult about aging, is the loss of control. So now they no longer they already don't like to have to ask for help, but not having the ability to participate in self-care is just really hard for people. So I really like that you can give them something else to do. So maybe if somebody has issues where they can't twist or move, or really whatever, they can participate in either doing all the work with FreedomWand, or maybe just a bit of it, or if it's a dementia one, just give them something to participate in that activity.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, those are all really good. Thank you so much. What are the three most critical elements that you feel that you need to talk to a caregiver about someone coming home in order to be successful at home?
Well, that's exactly what I do for work, meaning that my aging in place business looks at a holistic person. So you're not just looking at, the home environment, which is what most people think when they're thinking aging in place. They're thinking, okay, I need a contractor to come in here and put up grab bars, or I need to, do the obvious and remodel or get clear spaces. But it's not just about that. I tell people that what they really need to be considering are more than that, like good lighting for aging eyes, handholds that people aren't furniture walking, decreasing clutter. I mean, it's the cheapest thing that they could possibly do. That's the easiest or the hardest, because a lot of times people have lived in their houses for such a long time that they just have too much stuff, and it's really hard to get rid of. I always talk about physical fitness, because if somebody is not strong enough to get up off the floor, or even bringing groceries or whatever, they're not going to be able to stay at home. Yeah. And like we talked about before, staying out of the hospital, that if you're in and out of the hospital all the time, you're not aging in place. And if you can't get the help that you need through remote monitoring, or you're not good with tech and you can't connect with your kids to make sure you're okay, you need to be able to not feel like an island inside of that house. So it's a huge part. You've got to consider all those little bits and pieces, but definitely staying out of the hospital, being able to get help when you need it, physical spaces, and strength. Those are all vital parts of being able to age in place.
It was so interesting to me when Dad was here, because I had such a hard time getting him to do any kind of exercises.
Yeah.
Even his arm things, I just could not get him to cooperate. And I think a lot of this kind of education, now that I know better and I'm in arrears, right? I'm like, I should have been educating my parents on all of this kind of stuff way before they got sick. So I'm grateful for myself to learn all this at my age with my capacities, so that hopefully I'm easier on my children when I need the help.
It's a gift. It's a gift to them, really.
It is.
And, and really, a lot of people just don't really recognize it. You recognize it because you went through it with your parents, so you can do better.
Right.
So if you know better, you're going to do better. And now like people are watching the aging process and saying, I don't want to do that anymore. And so you're seeing a lot more people who are interested in the concept of prevention of issues, planning ahead, thinking about what are my options, and not what are my options next week, but what are my options 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now.
And how you set yourself up for that financially, but emotionally.
Yeah.
You know, I'm watching all the different aunties in my life, and I'm like, yep, we want to be like that. We want to do that. So, you know, you just can set yourself up a little bit better when you're open to the conversation. So I think whenever I speak with my friends recently, since mom and dad both have passed now, I'm like, you just got to just start opening up those conversations and be real and honest, and, you know, get to the nitty gritty now when they have their mindset, so they can understand why it is you're doing what you're doing. And yeah, because
and it's really interesting that you say that getting to those deep conversations are what you need to do. I mean, it's great family history. It's all interesting. Definitely you want to find that out before your parents pass away. But, you know, how somebody functions privately, that is a tough conversation. You know, daughters do not want to know what how their dads are toileting or showering. And, I'm just saying that, but those are conversations that are utterly important. And that's why OT is so valuable, because we are trained in having those conversations very delicately, but we still need the answers. Because
Right.
if I don't know if I don't know what your struggles are, is it getting up off the toilet? Is it wiping? Is it that you're dizzy when you stand up? If I can't drill down as to what the problem is, I can't help you fix that, So these are conversations that you have to have with a medical professional, and people don't feel open to that when a contractor comes over and says, hey, where do you want me to put the grab bar? They're not thinking, well, okay, they toilet in this way, or because they have Parkinson's, they tend to be hunched over, so that bar needs to be lower than you normally would put it in there. They're not thinking about those little nuances that you and I know, but you need the answer to if you're going to really be able to take care of your family at home.
Right. And those conversations are just so special because, first of all, they're special, but even pre-planning for your funerals, which isn't our topic, but those types of conversations with your parents while they still have their faculties is very, very special and extremely helpful for when the time comes.
No, absolutely.
And it gives you a peace of mind. It gave me a peace of mind that I was caring for them the way they wanted to be cared for, as long as I possibly could. Right. So it just gives you a peace of mind that when you do have to make those tough decisions, that you don't feel guilty making those decisions. Right. You've done what you can and you've done their wishes. So that's been great. So we've got a couple minutes left. So we have a question here that says, do you have a story of improved patient outcome of someone being able to stay at home that relates either to the FreedomWand specifically or the use of a toileting device? Do you have any kind of a fun story or interesting?
I do. I have the cutest patient who is a Parkinson's patient, so a little slowness in movement, but she's also this tiny little thing under 5 feet and a little bit rounder. So when she first came to me, she said, my biggest problem is that I can't toilet myself. And where she was, we couldn't do a bidet. And she often would go between different, between her kids. And so she can't always just bring everything with her. So we talked about the FreedomWand because what did she say? I have little T-Rex arms. I just can't reach down there. And, it's funny because of course there's some biomechanics in there, but if you carry your weight in your belly and you have shorter arms than, your ratio, it might feel like you have a little T-Rex arms and you're thinking there's just no way that I can wipe myself. But, with practice and, a little bit of training, it's totally possible.
Yeah, that's cute. That's cute. My smallest patient was a little person and she was only 2.5. And she was teeny. We were at the Little People Conference and she stood up on my table, but she went to preschool and she needed to be independent. So she was able, well, 2.5 is really little. So she used just the head, and she practiced underneath the table with the skirt around, and she's, Mommy, I can do it. I can do it. So that's my funnest little story about a little teeny tiny little one that needed to be independent. But how cool was that? Because that just allowed her to go into the mainstream of school, because she could tend to her own toileting.
Yeah. Well,
Even at that age, right?
Yeah.
But parents then preload them and pre-make the pom-poms and, hold them together with a rubber band. But yeah, that's a neat story. Thanks for sharing. I have a friend who's got T-Rex arms. She calls herself T-Rex. Is there anything else? We've got just about a minute or so left. Is there anything else that you would like to cover specifically to what you do, or anything else toileting concerns wise?
I just want to say that, the more planning that we do, the better off we will be. And trying to come up with solutions because you are in a time crunch, because somebody is like, oh my gosh, I'm at home already after my back surgery, even though or maybe they didn't know that they're not allowed to twist, trying to solve those problems and trying to get Amazon to deliver the FreedomWand ASAP. Those are not my wishes for, the generations going forward. Knowing about a product before you need it, and then having it on hand before you come home, that is what I really focus on. When I do virtual consults, my favorite thing is when people call me way before somebody's coming out of the hospital in 3 weeks, in 2 weeks. And, let's have a conversation so you can start looking at what your options are, pick deliberately what you want, and have it ready when they get home.
Perfect. And I think our doctors need to be addressing it, and the nurses of our doctors, when they have those types of procedures and surgeries, that they are very open to saying, sit somebody on a chair and try and bend and twist and reach your bottom without twisting more than 90 degrees, and see if you can do it. And if you can't do it, you need to get something, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Practice in the doctor's office in the chair and see if you can, because it's like a board. When I was in my turtle shell, there was no bending or twisting. You were a board, and you couldn't do anything, and you just can't reach. And when you overextend, it would be like putting weight on a weight limit ankle injury or foot injury. Right. And you're just going to set yourself back when you twist and overreach.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, our healthcare system just can't manage these things. And so that's the reason why I started my business, because nobody has time anymore to educate. But that's why I think that the next phase of what medicine is going to look like is it's going to be people like us educating on social media and telling people, hey, here are some examples, here's why you need that, because they're not going to get that information from the doctors or nurses in the hospital, because those guys have so much paperwork to do to satisfy insurance things so that they can get paid for just the surgery, never mind like the aftercare or the quality of life stuff that happens once you get home.
Yeah, exactly right. And now with all of us baby boomers coming around and not enough people to help care for us, we have to really be on top of it so we can stay home as long as we can.
Yeah, you need to be as independent as possible, for sure.
For sure. Well, Carol, it was wonderful having you join us. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And have a wonderful weekend coming up.
Yes, you too.
Yeah. Bye now.
Bye.